See, what I don't understand, what I don't get about it is we're meant to believe they were just, the reasons they were down the lane was it was the perfect place to execute Pat, Tony and Craig, the three in the Range Rover. So if this was the case, what are the sightings of a Range Rover seen earlier that day on the 6th of December? And is that just someone else? In the morning, it was seen with the Cosworth, or a white vehicle that looked like a Sierra. That made Rebecca Carr's statement seem realistic, because you've got the sighting of the Range Rover with the white Sierra. Rebecca Carr's statement can't actually be true with the times that she says, because Pat was back at the bungalow phoning Claire Carey. So the sole intention of getting them down that lane is it's the perfect place to execute them because of the shooting range, which is next door to the lane owned by Bill Philbold, the brother of the farmer who discovered the Range Rover with the bodies in the morning with Ken Jiggins. But if you were to believe the Darren Nichols version of events, that would make sense why there was a space in front of the Range Rover. Craig Rolfe believed he was going to go into the field. They were being shown the field by Michael Steele, which can't be true because, as we know, Tony Tucker knew that area. He knew Bill, the earlier sightings of the Range Rover in that area, if it is in fact them. What the description, or the wife of Peter in fact, what she saw that morning was the Range Rover a Range Rover and a white vehicle turning in and then back out as if they were looking for the lane. The same movements Rebecca Carr describes in the evening. But what wouldn't make sense there if that was Pat, Tony and Craig trying to look for the lane at 10 a.m. on the morning of the 6th because they want to go and check out this lane with someone in the Cosworth, the mysterious driver in the Cosworth, to look at the lane because there's a meet going down there later, or they're going to then show somebody the field. It's not Michael Steele showing them the field. There, they are showing someone else the field. But that wouldn't make sense what Rebecca Carr saw, because by then you'd assume they knew roughly where the lane was going to be and they wouldn't miss it again for the second time and end up in the entrance to the to White House Farm shops. According to the Billy Jasper theory, the 4K Coke meet, which took place after midnight, when the Range Rover went down the lane, it left again. There's a sighting by Raymond Wright, who saw another Range Rover driving into the lane entrance at 10 to 7. But he definitely described seeing lamp guards, in which case the Range Rover that the three deceased were found in didn't have them. And this would mean that this was also a slightly different coloured Range Rover. So who's this? There's quite a few people this could be that drove Range Rovers around that time. You've got Paul Edwards, you've got Jesse Gale, and you've also got John Marshall, but he of course drove a black Range Rover. So the mystery is, who is this in this Range Rover, the person in the back looking round at the traffic just as it enters the lane, person described in a fawn coloured top. One of the exhibits in the trial of Michael Steele and Jack Worms was a photo of Darren Nichols and Michael Steele, and Darren Nichols is wearing such a coloured top, a fawn coloured top. Is that Darren Nichols in the back of this Range Rover with the lamp guards on being seen going down the lane? We were led to believe in a video recently that came out that that's probably Michael Steele and the person described underneath Michael Steele's boiler suit. That would mean she had a really good view of Michael Steele and what he was wearing underneath this boiler suit or overalls or whatever he was meant to believe that he had on in the back of the Range Rover, which the three took the notice of because Michael Steele works in the garage, and if he just happened to turn up in Wellington boots and a boiler suit, no one's going to take it notice because they're just going to put it down to, oh yeah, he works in the garage, and we were just all off our head. After we just, the three are described as being, drugged up, really badly drugged up at this point, but there is an element of paranoia that comes with the substance abuse, and it just seems that Tony Tucker was already saying to Donna Garwood that he was worried about something that Pat had done, and he was acting jumpy and he was staying in a lot more. Then we've got him just down in the corner, down the dark lane with no weapons, which goes against what's been said. Or there is such an element of trust. Maybe this is the second or third time they've been down that lane to get that trust. First time we go down, maybe they did have weapons at 10 a.m. in the morning or whatever it was. And then again later that day. But by the time they'd gone down there, say, for instance, 7 o'clock, they may have had weapons. But then their deal was put back to after midnight. There was with a fourth passenger, maybe, who's involved in this murder, and this back door being left open because obviously Mr. X, Mr. D, open the door and take the three by surprise. But even after midnight, you'd expect Tony Tucker, being paranoid, to take weapons with him, to take a weapon with him, or at least Craig Rolfe or Patsy, or to have one in the vehicle somewhere. But then there is the discovery of the empty bag in the back of the Range Rover. Could that have contained weapons and the four keys of coke? Again, there's the space in front of the Range Rover. Craig Rolfe's got his feet on his brakes, like he's waiting to go through. Or is the fact that these two elements of this situation could be combined? Craig Rolfe waiting to go into the field, and they were waiting for Mr. D. If they were expecting Mr. D to come across the field, which were they? Because if they were expecting a vehicle to come behind, you'd expect Craig to at least turn around to facing the oncoming vehicle. It corners yourself against a gate with sort of nowhere to drive forward. But then if there is this other vehicle that comes from behind, carrying whoever you're expecting to meet, you can then drive around the vehicle to get away if that need be the situation. But they, by all accounts, look like they're expecting to go into the field. So is it a case of if they're expecting Mr. D? This is, of course, combining the two theories of what we're meant to believe, the Nichols and the Jasper theory, and they were going to try and get as close as to Rectory Lane as they could. But ask yourself this: what would be the perfect situation to kill them roughly around 7 o'clock, so the shots go unnoticed, but also risking rush hour, being seen leaving that lane? Or would you do it a lot later? Would you do it later? Which risks being seen, of course, being more noticeable if you are going to come out of lane. Rush hour traffic possibly being unnoticed, because you're not really going to notice a vehicle coming out of a lane unless it tries to nearly hits the traffic, like Darren Nichols described in one of the witness statements with the white van. Then, of course, you get the ones that will say that they went down the lane at 7 o'clock and they remained down there until they were killed at around about, just after midnight, according to Billy Jasper. So what would be the reason that they'd sat down there for these 5 hours? Were they drugged? Were they been held down there? It just seems it's a long time to keep somebody down, to keep somebody to just get murdered when the person that was holding could just murder them instead. So according to the Billy Jasper theory, the three are somewhere up until after midnight, sourcing possibly the 4 Ks of coke. As mentioned in the other video, it could have been out of town, and that could be the reason. But the mystery to me that bugs me to this day is what they actually believe they were down there for. And is it as simple as they were meeting for this 4K coke deal? And if that is the case, then what were all the earlier sightings? Were the earlier sightings earlier meets? Why didn't they do it as simple as somewhere as the Wheatsheaf car park, which led to where they're actually murdered? But Mr. D didn't choose that route. All the main entrance, which Darren Nichols said Mick and Jack walked back down after killing the three in the Range Rover, he chose to come across the fields, which we will be led to believe in the near future wasn't possible, or isn't possible now or then, or it would have been such a struggle that no one would have chose to take that route. But Mr. D, being a military man, possibly wouldn't have entered the main entrance or alternative lane. Darren Nichols saying that he pulled out into this vehicle while he was with Mick and Jack, and there's a slight truth in that. He's been picked from another statement, it looks like. Is there a slight element of truth in Darren Nichols' version of events with this expected plane, which goes against the Billy Jasper theory, because there's no mention of no plane, no fake plane drop, no plane law. It's all about the 4Ks of coke. That would have been interesting if Billy Jasper had mentioned that they were in fact sat down the lane waiting for a plane, and then Mr. D turns up. But Billy Jasper didn't know nothing about the actual contents of the plan. He only knew what he knew from what he'd heard, picking up from different parts of conversations, which is what the whole Patsy Clark situation was about. Billy Jasper had heard through different parts of conversation that he believed that the hit was coming from Patsy Clark, when in fact recent information has changed that side of things, and it's been now looked upon as this big, huge mistake. But that's another side of this whole Billy Jasper theory that's going on at the moment. It just boils down to some of the unanswered questions of the Billy Jasper theory, if it is in fact true. If Mick and Jack killed the three in the Range Rover, there are more unanswered questions wrapped around that theory than around the story of Billy Jasper. See you on the next video. I probably won't be in the bath on that one.